What is up, man?
Hey, how's it going, Joe?
Good. Welcome to the show. You're actually you might be the biggest fan of the show.
I am a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of this show, Joe. And one of the things that really turned me on to it is I heard that you weren't really from Fort Smith.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, this is how you're learning Fort Smith. And I think that's probably one of the coolest things ever. You're learning about our community through talking to people that know about our community.
Yeah. And Fort Smith is interesting, too, I'll say, because it went through different phases over the years when I'm learning. There was kind of like an industrial phase. And now I feel like there's a big push from the community to be more modern, be more like areas in Austin, more like areas in Dallas, Fort Worth, have that type of a vibe, but also still be integrated with nature, which is super cool. So honestly, I'm super excited to see what it looks like in 5-10 years from now.
Absolutely. I do too. Fort Smith's got an energy to it right now. I've always said that Fort Smith is a big, small town. And I can say that because I'm from a small town.
Oh, yeah.
It's south of here, L.A.?
L.A.?
Lower Arkansas. So
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So, are you trolling me right now?
Right. No, I'm from Mena. It's about an hour and a half south of here. So my parents and family are all down there. But yeah, that's a small town. So when I moved to Fort Smith, over time, I realized that Fort Smith's it's still a small town, kind of a small town mentality in all the good hospitality, sweet tea kind of ways. But we're also on the cutting edge of a lot of things too. So that's a unique quality of our community.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's lay a foundation for all the viewers, because there are people who are listening who are, they're from Fort Smith. There are quite a few who are not from Fort Smith. So just kind of lay the foundation of who you are, up to the current day, I guess.
Okay,
and then we'll go through discovering how you became this person.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm again from Mena. I moved up here in 1999.
Sorry, let's go back. So starting with what you do now, if you gave a title to yourself.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I would say that I was the director of fun of Fort Smith, the Fort Smith River Valley. This is something that started from radio back from 1999. That's kind of where I started. But what I do now is I'm a voice for Fort Smith. My slogan is I love Fort Smith out loud. And if you don't know what that is, then you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram or all the places that you can follow me. And you'll see that I do truly love Fort Smith out loud. And I love Fort Smith because Fort Smith loves me back. And that's not to sound cheesy. That's the real deal. I've been here for 27 years now, loving Fort Smith out loud, either from behind a microphone most of the time to today, and I'll never stop. It's just a great community, and they've loved me back, so I love them. So, but it started, I told you when I got here, I said, this is what brought me to the dance.
Yeah.
This is what brought me to the dance, was wearing headphones and getting behind a microphone. So I'd started when I graduated high school. I moved up here to be a nurse of all things. Yeah.
I was from Mena? Mm-hmm. So you went directly from school to... Okay, but let's go back a little bit further, though.
Okay.
What in your life happened to where you just wanted to push towards fun? Like this idea towards fun began to be the thing. Because right now it seems like the narrative of your life is directing towards fun things, making... allowing people to see that the quality of Fort Smith has a fun environment. And sometimes you're creating that environment. Sometimes you're showing other areas that are creating that environment. But where did that idea of, fun is what I'm going to push come?
I think that the current state of maybe our world right now, I think everyone needs a little more fun. So that's kind of why it makes it a little more easier now to say I'm the director of fun. But when it first initially started, it all came from a party I was at. And there was this person there. And they were starting to talk about Fort Smith and talking bad about Fort Smith. And they'd lived there their whole life and they hated it. And it was a black hole. And I was just listening to it. And I'd already been in radio for a couple of years. So I'd already been screaming behind a mic, for 2 solid years. And, talking about, oh, man, come join me here at this. And here's this event going on. So I just listened to the guy and I said, man, do you just really think there's no fun here? There's nothing to do here? And he's like, yeah, man, I just don't like this place. So that night, it was about 2012. Facebook was just getting pretty going. I created a Facebook page, and I called it Things to Do in Fort Smith. And I literally spent the next 2 or 3 years just posting things that I did. And I was so active that I was involved in a little theater. Did stuff with the art center. I did stuff with the convention center. Like anything that there was something to do with, I was a part of it. So I would just share things to do. So over time, as that as it grew, you could look at the page and go, wow, there's so much to do here.
Yeah.
From there, created a kind of a website, kind of a makeshift website. And then at that point, it really turned into kind of Rham out loud, whether you're behind a microphone in radio. I eventually got out of radio. I never really put the mic down. I joke that I carry a wireless in my back pocket, and it works at the Walmart on zero. But I do. I continued to carry that voice to the community. I would volunteer for event hosts for all the nonprofit events. And I just did that year after year. And then now, fast forward, it's been almost 27 years, and I've basically been behind a mic that whole time.
Jeez.
That's what I said. I love right here.
So how big is the community now within that group that you talk?
The Facebook page and things like that. I've got about a 65,000 person reach on that one. And then my personal page, I have about 10,000 followers now. Just enough now for the past year. Facebook has tagged me as a local influencer. That sounds exciting.
Yes, let me intro you here. For all you grandmas, for all you aunts who don't understand what influencers are and how people make money from the internet, can you please explain to us?
I certainly can. This is a very new thing to me. It's something I always thought I could do because people are like, man, you've got a following. You could, you're funny. You do stupid things. You could really make some money from this. And I never really fought it, but I knew how much work it was going to take. So I didn't really try very hard. I just was very engaging with my posts. I make lots of great photos, and everything I do is centered around something fun. Whether it's on a ride, on a roller coaster. I mean, I'm always good about just really making engaging posts. And that's why Facebook, about a year ago, they tagged me as a local influencer. So I got pretty excited when I got the letter and realized first it wasn't spam. I'm like, okay, this is a real letter from Facebook. And they were saying, hey, congratulations, you've reached this, this, and this. And then about once a week, they send me an email on tips and tricks on how to become a better influencer and how to get more impressions. So in doing that, I am a paid influencer. You do have to generate content all the time, all the time. I've not taken it to a level to where it's my job now. It's just it's a little bit of supplemental income. I do know what it would take to kind of take it to that next level. But what I've realized is that when I look at my numbers, all my reach and everything from my pages that I control.
Wait, let's pull back from there before you go into the community aspect.
Sure.
I think that's where you're going. Because there are also some, like I said, there's grandmas who need to understand how this works. We've just explained it to them. But now there's also people who are listening who are maybe my age or younger, and they want to create something like this. Maybe they're interested in being an influencer. Let's actually talk about what they can expect.
Sure.
The first check you got, how much was it?
The first check I got, I was very excited. I thought, man, I can do this. If I did this much work for $253, that was it.
That's still pretty high.
It was not bad. I mean, it was the first month, and I thought, man, no more than I did. If I could just double that, I could just. So I really saw this vision. Well, it comes to find out that you have to do, when they send you these tips and tricks on doing videos and live feeds and more reels and all that, they're not kidding. They want you to do that. And if you do, you can immediately see the results. Like you can say, if they tell you to do a reel and make it engaging and you do it, I can go back and look at the views on that, and they reward you for it. So I still haven't hit a mark on the number. That was the highest number. Now it averages anywhere between 150 and 200, sometimes under 150. It just really depends on how engaging the posts are. But because I don't necessarily want to go viral, I think that's the biggest thing when people go into influencing is that they want to go viral.
Yeah.
And if you could do something to go viral and get those national ad buys, power to you. Yeah. But the thing is that people need to understand that it doesn't stay unless you continue to push it. Like you can't stop.
Yeah.
Like the content flow never stops. But again, Facebook wants you to go national. I don't really want to go national because I like to super serve the River Valley. And my numbers really circumvent Fort Smith, Van Buren, the entire River Valley. I benefit more reaching out to the public that are right here next to me, not somebody in Nevada, not somebody in New York. I might get paid for it, but it wouldn't be as beneficial to people in my area. So I stay local, and doing that keeps the money not that great, but it also keeps me in the community, and that's what I want to do.
Yeah, because you started out with a goal to build a community.
Exactly.
Not to make the most amount of profit? Because obviously you would just create the content that they're asking for if it was for profit.
Exactly. I mean, and then sometimes I'll dabble into it if I can do a local feel to it. I'll just kind of see to test it, and it works. They kind of reward you for it. So I take that one a day at a time. I do know that my reach is good, and people they engage with it. So I want to take that to here. I want to take that to the barracks. I want to take that to the bakery. I take my following, so to speak, or my voice, and just be positive. Like I am positive about everything. I know that right now everything's not positive in this world, but there's always something fun to do. And I like to encourage people to get up, get out, and love Fort Smith out loud.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's really cool. So, okay, your love for community started then, but when did your love for specifically Fort Smith start?
Well, that started really when I cracked the mic. I cracked the mic on the radio in 1999, it was at midnight over the song Lenny Kravitz, Fly Away. It was a 24-second intro that I listened in my headphones for probably 2 hours, that 24 seconds, just practicing what I was going to say. Still don't know what I said. I don't remember. But when I cracked that mic and eventually went into the 7 to midnight slot, and that was back in 99, 2000, radio was hot. I mean, radio was still kind of a hot thing then. I wasn't a DJ in the sense of spinning records. Like by the time I got into radio, we were on hard drive and things like that. So I'm not like the contemporary old school disc jockey with, doing that. But I learned so much in radio, like being a part, and I worked for a local station. It was Kisser 93, so it's still on now. But being there got me so involved with all the nonprofits, all the businesses, like all the connections I started to make with the businesses. So when I left radio, I didn't lose that audience. And luckily at the time, it's kind of when social media was really picking up. Because I started with MySpace, and I know you're significantly younger than me, I think.
I've been on MySpace.
Oh, you've been on MySpace. Yeah. Okay, well, that's really I started on MySpace.
Illegally, technically.
Okay.
I was too young, so I had to lie about my age to go on.
Sure, that never happens. What do you mean? So MySpace kind of went to Facebook. And I thought, man, I'm leaving radio, but I still kind of have this voice. And I quickly found when I started doing Facebook that my followers went up and it just kind of continued to grow. But my voice didn't change. My voice was still loving Fort Smith out loud. Hey, join me tonight for trivia. Hey, come play cornhole this night. It was always something in the community, and there's never not something to do here. Like if anyone ever thinks, oh, this is no good, there's always something to do in Fort Smith.
Yeah. So if you were able to go to another city and you had to restart and try to rebuild this up in the same in the new city, what are a couple of things that you would do differently from the way you started?
I don't know. I think that keeping the energy level up and keeping the positive tone up throughout my entire life, but continuing that on. I don't know that I would change anything. I have a big push to really get people in communities, our community specifically, to get more involved. So I think I could do a better job about using my influence, so to speak, to say, hey, you should volunteer for a Good Samaritan Clinic event. Hey, you should go volunteer for the Community Services Clearinghouse. I would be better, and I continue to get better now, about really having the community engage more, because that's really how you learn to love Fort Smith out loud is you really have to engage. And that means you have to volunteer. That means you have to attend the events. You have to show support. You have to hit share on the event that you see on Facebook. Little things like that. When people ask me, how do you love Fort Smith out loud? Just like that. Yeah. Just engage yourself. Just involve yourself in the community. For 27 years, I have woven myself into the fabric of Fort Smith. I mean, that is really what I've done. And it's been a bumpy journey. It's been for the first 23 years of those, I would say that it was a lot different than it is been the past 4 years, and that's kind of another part of my story. But for the longest time here in Fort Smith, I was known for not only the fun guy, but also the really fun guy. So when I'm on stage and I'm emceeing or hosting the Ales for Trails, well, I'll probably have an ale in my hand, maybe a couple ales in my hand. And when you put together 12 years of hosting events and being at clubs and bars and bands, and when you take 12 years of that, you kind of get into the groove. Yeah. You kind of get into the fun groove, and maybe you go a bit too far. So I was a heavy drinker for much of my career in Fort Smith, and thank God I didn't burn a bridge so bad in that I lost my connections. I didn't. But in 2020, all of our favorite years, when everyone went left, I went right, and I stopped drinking. I checked myself into rehab, and came out 30 days later, and I haven't had a drink since.
Dude,
so
that's awesome. Yeah.
So that is something that, I wear this necklace 7/31/2020 because I want people to ask me about it. I really do. I'm proud about it. I blog about it. I have a weekly blog that I put out every Friday morning called Rham's Ramblings, and it really started out calling it a captain's log. And it was my journey, Captain's Log Day 4 without alcohol. Well, I went all the way Captain's Log Day 1,465, which is a couple weeks ago. And that's what I do every week. And part of the Rham's Ramblings is my journey, my mind, which is really weird. And then the next part about it is like, oh, hey, here's some things to do. Check it out below. So it's kind of like a hook to talk about funny stuff in my story. And then, hey, here's things to do. So
yeah. So your personality overall, and it sounds like it always has been, is to approach fun optimistically. And so what I'm curious about is, say 2020 is when you made a decision to have more fun, you know, in a better way, in a more clean way, and a way that was more healthy for your life and for everybody's life around you. But with you being kind of that face of fun, what had to happen for you to go down that road that you ended up on?
So I think that I took fun to a different level. After I left radio, which was about 2010, I went to work for a couple advertising agencies. So that it was advertising just like radio. So it was sort of the same vein. I did that for a few years, and then I got back into radio just before COVID hit, and it was the wrong thing to do. I shouldn't have got back in. And it was kind of during a time that my drinking had picked up because COVID was just coming, and I could kind of see it. Well, they ended up kind of laying us off at the radio station, and then I just ended up not going back by my own choice. My drinking was too much because they were letting us stay home and broadcast from the house. Well, that's just an open invitation to to drink at your house. So it was a bad time. So during that little stint, I just got to the point. I have a daughter. At the time, she was 3, turning 4. I didn't want her to remember her dad as someone who drank. So she was a huge part of my decision. But I did it for me. I mean, that's something you have to do. I did it for me. But I saw a path that I couldn't continue to do what I was doing. If I was going to be this voice of fun and all that, I had to be around. I had drank to the point that it was starting to affect my health. So it kind of gotten to that point. So I had one kind of a medical scare with alcohol. And that's when I just said, okay. I had already tried to quit a few times, a few years off and on, because I knew I drank. I was a social drinker and a very functioning alcoholic, I think.
Yeah.
But it just hit me. One day it just hit me, and I just said, no, not again. And I won't. Yeah. I used to count the days. I told you I did, day whatever. This week's blog that goes out on Friday, I said Captain's Log Day. I'm not going to count the day anymore. I'm just going to stop counting. Not that I've drank, but I'm not going to drink again. So that's good enough for me.
So if I was a fly on the wall during that season of your kind of like alcoholism, what would I see?
You would have seen a party. A really good party. No.
Outwardly?
Yeah, it didn't really get, I would say, dark until the very end. And that's when I wasn't in the public. That's just when I kind of stayed home and COVID was just kind of hitting. So nobody was home. So, you hear stories about after COVID, a lot of people increased their alcohol, because what else is there to do? Sit at home. I thought, man, if I sit in the house, I didn't know how long at the time, but if I sit in my house and just did this and just drank, I'm not going to come out of this. I'm not going to be, when the world comes back to order and we're able to go out without masks again, I may not be here. And I had that legitimate scare that like, man, I'm killing myself. I was 40, I was 40 years old at the time. And it's like, man, I don't want to be dead before 45. So it was more of a dark reality of knowing that if I continued down that path, I wouldn't be able to do what I love.
Yeah.
Which is Fort Smith, my daughter, my family, my life, my friends. I put a lot more focus on the people around me, and then knowing that I can't help those people around me until I help myself.
Yeah.
So that's really been kind of
what's really interesting about your journey through that process is a lot of times when you go and you try to break these different things in your life, right? These barriers, these unhealthy areas of your life. A lot of people have to distance themselves away from the opportunity. but you didn't have that option. You actually had the opposite. You were stuck at home where you could do it even more than ever. Like you physically, like you couldn't leave,
Right.
you know? And so you had to jump through a lot of mental hurdles, I'm sure. How is that even possible? When I say possible, how is it possible to get away from alcohol when in your mind, when you physically just had as much opportunity as an alcoholic would want?
That is a great question. When I decided to quit, and I in my mind, I went through this, and there's a blog about it called "I Had to." Why did you quit drinking? I had to, and it wasn't a choice. Like I've given myself not a choice. Going to rehab, going to Harbor House, I did it here locally, and they are incredible. If you've not talked to somebody from Harbor House, I hope you do. They gave me the tools. They gave me the knowledge that I needed when I got out to, and I had already made my mind up, but that was a good foundation. And let me tell you, it was the scariest moment in my life. I've never been to jail. I've never been arrested. I've never been anything. And it was the most terrifying experience of my life, but probably one of the best things I've ever done. To kind of follow up with kind of what you're saying, the real trick was when I got out. And now what am I going to do? Because Rham is Rham out loud. Rham's on the stage. Rham's got a beer in his hand. Loving Fort Smith out loud. That's what he does. I could have went the other way. And when I got out of rehab, I did, just for briefly. I went and worked for Fort Smith Coffee Company during the holiday season. It was one of the coolest jobs I've ever had. I never got to quite make the coffee, but I was there at the front, and it was great. But I thought, man, maybe I'm not going to do what Rham does. But once I realized that I do have a talent to be able to speak, and I have a talent to be able to reach a lot of people, I thought, you can do this without alcohol, surely. But what that did is it put me back in the bars. It put me back in the clubs. It put me back as the event host at the biggest event in Fort Smith, raising money for A, B, and C, and there's so much alcohol everywhere around you. So just like with COVID, I stopped drinking. When I got out, instead of going the other way with alcohol, I dove right in the middle of the pool. And I never recommend anybody. I tell people when I tell them my story, I said, this is not a blueprint. This is how I've done it. I don't recommend you doing it the way I do it, but I jumped right back in the fire. And the closer I got to alcohol, the more, and I abstained from it, the stronger I got. So when I got that first taste of the first event I hosted after, or the first bar I walked in with a friend, and I fought that urge to not take a drink, and I almost did or whatever, but I didn't. When I left there, I can't describe the feeling that it gives you. Or when something really bad happens in your life and you just want to lose yourself in alcohol like I have before, and you don't, the feeling that you get when you don't is something you can't sell by. It is something you can't bottle up. It is the greatest feeling in the world. And I've had so many of those small successes in the past 4 years that I really am going to tell you now, I'm not going to drink again. I'm confident that I'm not going to drink again. And by putting myself in the fire, I think that's what's made me stronger. Instead of just not being around alcohol, because it's everywhere. I mean, and I recognize that. And I also understand that I hate that I'm not a drinker. I know the benefits of alcohol. I know the benefits of it helping community. It makes money. It does a lot of great things. I'm just not going to drink it. And now I'm 4 years sober, and I've done what Rham does. I now know I can do it without a drink in my hand, which is even cooler.
Yeah. Let me set the scene for this next question for you so that you can understand it a little bit better. But I think that we go through life and we have these experiences that are unhuman, and then we have some that are very human. And the experiences that you said motivated you to keep stopping, those were very human experiences. Some experiences that are not human is fame. Fame is very interesting. Influence, having influence, very interesting, unhuman-like, right? So what I mean by that is because what's the fruit that come from that, right? If you're famous and you walk into public, people come up to you and they don't have words in their mouth to say to you, or they look at you in a certain way, or they have this certain mindset. Like, for instance, one of the certain mindsets people had about you is that's Rham. He's the guy who's on stage with a beer in his hand who's having fun. Those aren't human-like experiences. Those are very unnatural experiences. So my question to you is, do you think there's a dark side to having pride?
100%. Absolutely. There is a dark side if you let it consume you. You have to, because I've been behind the mic for so long, in such a small town, a lot of people do know me. They do. And I did worry about that. I'm like, man, in fact, one of the first times I spoke after rehab was to a group of old radio people, of old media people. And that entire room remembered seeing me at the press party at the fair 5 years ago. They remember seeing me on the stage at Wine and Roses. That was my peers that remembered the drinking Rham. So that was a surreal moment walking up on that stage to talk about my story, kind of what we're doing here, but then getting into my necklace and why I don't drink anymore. It was very surreal because I was like, these people, are they going to believe me? Or, I never really thought that, because I know in my heart where I am. But to be able to share that with the people that are like saw me in the throes of Rham, that Rham, it was tricky.
Well, that part that you just said, you really didn't face it a lot, those issues, those mindsets a lot, because you knew in your heart who you were. Do you think that's the main problem before? They kept you saying, you know what, I'm on stage when you got out. Right before, when you got out and you're partying, you're doing these different things, and some of it you're like, you know what, maybe I'm turning the knob a little bit too far, but this is what they expect from me. Mm-hmm. Would you say some of that was because you didn't know who you were in your heart yet, or who you wanted to be yet?
I think that at that time I wanted to be who Rham had always been, but I wanted to pivot. I wanted to reboot him just a bit, and hopefully by the end they might remember that old Rham and his ways possibly. But Rham 2.0 is so much better, and that's what I hope I've done is like I have tackled a problem that I had. And, and the other thing about being approachable, that's another thing too. I am very approachable, and people do come up to me and talk to me a lot. And, I wear this necklace for that reason. I want people to ask me, hey, what is that? I'm like, oh, you got 5 minutes? Let's have a talk. And I can't tell you how many people, when I tell that story, relate to it, want to further follow up and say, hey, I would maybe consider like to stop drinking, and those things like that is worth everything that I've ever done. Them knowing where I was at one time and knowing where I am now. And if that in any way helps anybody, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. Going through everything that you've been through so far, who does Rham want to be now?
Rham wants to be a community-minded lover of all things that he can affect. So Fort Smith is the perfect size for me to, again, embed myself into it and love all of it. I've spent time downtown at the bakery. I've lived there. I'm working out here with you guys at Chaffee. I love what's going on out here. I support Fort Smith north, south, east, and west. So, when I saw your podcast pop up, I'm like, this guy right here, man, this is, I tell like people like Mayor McGill and I think he interviewed Sarah Strom from Fort Kids. I call them charter members of the Loving Fort Smith Out Loud Club. Well, I think you're a new member of the Fort Smith Out Loud Club. So excellent job.
I appreciate it. Yeah. So, where are you wanting to go from here? You've done a lot. You have some avenues that you can go. And I guess when I say this question, let me fix the plate for you a little bit better. So there are a bunch of different ways that you can go. In my mind, I see, right? You can continue to grow the community that you have, which already seems pretty big. Fort Smith, in numbers wise, right now is you have majority of those numbers of what the population is. You have the reach. So you could go a bunch of different ways. You can go back into the party scene. You could go into the event space. You could go into you can go and do something with the Visitors Bureau. Like, where do you want to be? What do you want to do?
I think that my most beneficial spot is being kind of someone who is always available, who has that voice and that reach to where when we want to talk about the beer fest coming up, we want to talk about the run coming up, I'm that person that is contacted to be a part of, okay, let's get this message out. I have hyper-focused on different areas of the community for years. I like to go where things are growing. Obviously, the bakery and everything it's done, you guys are doing it out here. I see myself as someone that helps kind of move the needle in terms of generating opportunity and generating just some exposure to cool things in town. And I believe that if I can pay the water bill doing that, I'm not trying to retire as a rich person. if I can pay the water bill doing those things and I can continue to have fun like I do and support my daughter and my family, that's all I really want. Like I want to be here. I want to be in Fort Smith. I don't ever want to leave. I mean, people have asked me for years, oh, you didn't move to Dallas when you were in radio. Oh, you didn't move to Northwest Arkansas. I love Northwest Arkansas. I go up there all the time. I'm a mountain biker. I ride mountain bikes all the time. I love to visit Northwest Arkansas, and I love to come right back through the tunnel and get back home. So the pace is better for me.
So Fort Smith is awesome right now as it is. I think it has some room to grow, and you love Fort Smith the way it is. At every season, it sounds like.
Yes.
Whatever year, whatever process Fort Smith is going through, you've chosen to love that, kind of like a marriage. You're going through with your spouse. You know, you love that person however they are, whenever they are.
Yep.
But what do you think about growth? Like, what would you like to see in the future? What would you like to see Fort Smith blossom into?
I support growth. I do. I support everything that you guys are doing out here at Chaffee and the college. And, Fort Smith's unique in that we have pockets of areas that are growing. We've got downtown growing. We've got the east side growing. I've never wanted there to be an us versus them mentality. And I think years ago, it kind of was that. And over time, with people like you, people like Lloyd, that we've kind of bridged that gap. And now we're kind of working all together. Fort Smith is going to grow. There's no question about it. We've got the big companies moving in and this military initiative. Mm-hmm. Fort Smith's landscape is about to change. I try to picture 5 years. I try to picture 10 years. I don't quite know, but I do know that they're the right people in place right now. With Michael Means with the mobility department, he's really been pivotal in getting trails all over this town, connectivity. I see that continuing. I see the downtown development and the riverfront continuing to do what it's doing with, we got the Fort Kids Museum. We've got the Fort Smith Marshalls. I'm a huge fan of the Marshalls.
Yeah.
So Fort Smith it's growing. There's no question that we're about to hit a growth spurt that we've not seen in many decades. I don't know how quickly that's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be 2, 3, 8 years. I don't really know how that works in terms of like the real overall impact. But I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
I really am. I'm excited for the new people, the new faces. I'm excited to connect with them, learn about them, and then help them love Fort Smith out loud, because that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah. Okay, so I want you to pick a couple different experiences, conversations, just kind of involvements you had with specific people in the community. And then I want you to give me a story that you can never forget from those experiences. So pick some stories you can never forget from some experiences that you've had with people in the community.
Okay. Well, in 27 years, there's a lot of stories. I was one of my most memorable experiences and people that I've worked with, and I've worked with him for many years. His name is John McIntosh. I don't know if you've heard that name or not, but just an incredible guy. He's kind of an old marketing guy for years, and I sometimes say he's kind of the older version of me. I think I have more energy than him, but I think it's because he's older. But he is one of my good friends, and I worked with him the closest one year for the Ales for Trails that we put on downtown. And he was basically just kind of my mentor, and he did the work, but he did it in his mind. He would say, do this, do that. I mean, he's done it so many times that it was just fascinating to watch. Or you call this person for the ice, you call this person for the trash cans, he just knew everything. And working with him really gave me the event experience that I liked. And then this particular year, actually, it was the year that, the last year of the Ales for Trails, I was the MC. And this was in 2019, and it was when the Great Flood happened. Were you here?
Yeah. No, I mean, physically, yeah, we were here, but no, I didn't live here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But we were here during that time.
Yeah. So there was a big, huge flood in downtown, and the bridge was closed. It was awful, and worst flood, 100 years flood. And at the same time, I was also in radio, and the song by Lil Nas X that was so popular, his first one, Old Garrison Road, or Old Town Road.
Yeah, Old Town Road.
It was playing every other song on all the radio stations. Mm-hmm. So I'm also, another piece of me, I also write music, and I have music. Don't Google it yet, maybe later. But I do have some music that I do. And I rewrote Old Town Road. And so funny. I did a music video to it. If you type in Old Garrison Road on YouTube, there's many thousands of views, but I did a video that we then made available for download for 99 cents, and all the money that we raised went to the United Way. Didn't get rich on it, didn't do anything with it, because you know as well as anything, you can't really sell songs anymore like that. It was just kind of the gesture, but it still worked. Video's still up on YouTube. Please type it in. I'm wearing very short cutoff shorts, cowboy boots, a cowboy. Yeah, it's very entertaining. But that particular year at the Aylesford Trails, I performed it on the stage at the very, very end in front of a crowd. So it was my first time I'd ever performed as a musician. I'm not a musician. And I sang it. I rapped it. I did the whole thing in front of all the people. And it was the probably most memorable experience of my life. So
yeah. Give me another one.
Another story. Man, I was in radio. So some of those I don't know if we should talk about to your audience. I was in radio for so many years. One of the most I guess memorable would be I used to be the captain of communication, is what I called myself. I'm a big namer. Like, I name things. So
I hate names.
Do you hate names? Well, I'm saying,
I hate names and titles.
Do you? I'm for some reason I name buildings, I name spaces, and I name myself like I'm director of fun.
When you think about it, I don't know. Especially when it comes to titles, it's like that person is so much more than an MC.
That's why I hope director of fun in a way. Like, when I first started saying that 4 years ago, it sounded silly. And my business cards even said director of fun. And I would always feel a little, I don't know if this is really going to be professional. But over time, it really turned into, no, this is really what you're doing. You're coordinating, you're directing fun. And then it kind of turned into something cool. So I'm like, I can hang on to that. And it kind of incorporates a lot of things that I do. So
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
But no, I was the captain of communication at the Good Samaritan Clinic. And then I was the MC at their big event. So there's a lot of stories of just me with a microphone. I had a microphone just about everywhere I go. So, but yeah, radio, I thought of a couple that I just don't know we should talk about. So.
Arkansas Minds After Hours.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Tune in on YouTube After Hours.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Okay, I want to open up the floor for you just to kind of share some things that maybe we missed, or maybe even some areas that you would just like the people to know about you, maybe some things going on in Fort Smith. Just kind of giving you the floor.
Sure. Well, anything that you can do to engage with Fort Smith, whether that's, getting on boards, that's the thing. I want people to get on nonprofit boards. The boards that I'm on, there are people on there that they should probably retire. Not that they're doing anything wrong, but they've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
And I want people between the ages of 30 and 50. This is who I'm calling, between 25 and 50. I want those people to be more engaged and to really get involved in all the incredible nonprofits out here. But I will continue to always be that voice of, man, Rham, what's going on this weekend? That's, my phone blows up all the time. What's going on? The Facebook page has helped in terms of like, hey, just check out the page, But I think I will always be that person that will kind of always be in the know. And I say that a little hesitantly because sometimes that's exhausting. To be kind of always connected. But I think that I've done it long enough now, and I'm connected to the right kind of entities and people that I just sort of, the information sort of comes. I don't have to dig for it anymore. And I think that's the biggest problem. One of the biggest problems in the past is people not knowing about all the cool stuff and things like what you're doing, things like what, the visitor centers can, they're doing some new stuff. And then what I can do, it just helps the cause. Back in the day when it was radio, it was always very, this is ours, we're doing this, we sponsored this. But then when social media came about, everything was shared. Like, you can't really I didn't want to take ownership of this event. I wanted to support this event. It didn't really matter to me that Things to Do in Fort Smith presented it or Rham's on the stage doing it. I just want to support that with what I'm bringing over. And I don't see that ever going away. I really don't. I love my daughter is able to see me in the community and, Dad's got a microphone again, so, and she gets embarrassed sometimes, but I'm volunteering at her school, anything like that. And that's going to be me. I mean, that has been me. That's going to continue to be me throughout. So I'm also an actor down at the Fort Smith Little Theater.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
with the film commission?
No. That's Brandon Goldsmith, Fort Smith Film. No, this is the Fort Smith Little Theater.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you should interview somebody from there. I think their next production is Murder on Orient Express. That's coming up here in a few months.
Oh, wow.
I am going to audition I auditioned last year for Arsenic and Old Lace, and I got cast, and I hadn't been in a show for, I hadn't been in one in about 12 years. But before that, when I was in radio, I started in theater in 2002 here in Fort Smith, and I went all the way to about 2013 doing shows all the time. So I'll always be involved with that. So being seen and heard is not really difficult for Rham to do. So that's really what I plan on doing.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, what is it? So people can go follow you on all your different platforms. Can you just kind of list out all the different links?
I've kind of simplified it because I'm really trying. I'm on a new path right now, or at least kind of cleaning up some of my contacts. If you go to Facebook, that's really where my biggest following is right now, and where I see the most results. But Things to Do Fort Smith, it's a little green logo. You'll see it. That's the page that I use for Things to Do. And then I have just got a personal page. It's maxed out on friends, but you can still follow, and it's just Nicholas Rham Cunningham on Facebook. There is Nick Rham on Instagram. There's so many different platforms, and I'm trying to tie them all together. But again, back to what we're talking about, the influencing and stuff, it's a lot of work. Like, people don't realize how much work it really is to know that I made that $250 that first month, and then to know how I would have to really make that always, it's a full-time job.
No question. It's a lot of work. Yeah. It's a lot of work for sure. I mean, I think that I found that YouTube to be so much more easier. $250 on YouTube is not in AdSense, but like in like little small, minute brand deals. We're talking like a reel. You can do that for $250.
Right.
And I found that you can do that in like an hour. Mm-hmm. So it's really like, how many contacts can you get to get that many? So I mean, just look at the difference there. All the work you're doing right now, $200 will be the worth 1 hour, $200.
Right.
It's just like crazy. So that's why I stick to YouTube.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to actually change over to that. So now I have a podcast, nothing like this, and it's only audio. And I launched it years ago, but it was called Rham Out Loud. Okay. And it's not what you're doing, but it's just talking about things to do and people in the community. Oh, you got this event coming up. It was pretty good, and I wouldn't let it go dormant because I want to come back with more of a professional look. Yeah. So I've kind of got that platform, and then my weekly newsletter. I think I hit on it before, but it goes out every Friday morning at 7:15. You can go to thingstodoinfortsmith.com and subscribe to it. It's one email a week with the Rams ramblings and then things to do, and that's it. It's a very simple. But that particular newsletter and the ramblings, it gets great traffic. So I'm gonna, when I do launch this podcast or whatever I try to do, I've got kind of the tools to set something if it's good. If it's what I have is good, like this interview, it's going to be awesome. I can't wait to release it out. Yeah. I'll always have that audience, so I'm always going to be able to share all the good. So
one thing I actually want to ask you about, just thinking about it now, what's been your experience with fundraising or crowdfunding or anything like that with like the community that you have? Or have you even tried to do any of that here locally at all?
It's like crowdsourcing and different, fundraising is a beast of itself. I will say that Fort Smith is a very giving community. They are incredible with all of our big corporations. I think they're very good. I've personally, other than just kind of a handshake, hey, support this cause, I've not really dove into a lot of that. Okay. But my experience has been enough that we have an insanely giving community. We really do. It's we care about each other. Again, I love Fort Smith. They love me back. Mm-hmm. Well, that's kind of the feeling I get from everyone. We love it, it'll love us back. So.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm excited to share this out. We're about to snap some photos of you right quick and for the thumbnail. Yeah. Alrighty, thank you guys for checking in, and we'll see you in the next one.